Greetings, YouTubers. I know I said I was going to slow down on Weiss stuff for a while, but I've been really excited to look at this set for a while, so I'm going to look at it. I've been wanting to look at the set for a while, mainly because Crazy Link from some of the other videos actually mains the Fate set. Now, I haven't actually seen Fate Stay Night, I haven't seen Unlimited Blade Works, I have seen Fate Zero, so I do know a little bit about the story, but I don't know a whole lot. I also have to warn you that I don't know too much about the Fate sets because I never actually got super into them. I know a little bit about them, like I said before, because Crazy Link plays the deck and he's got a pretty neat control deck. So unfortunately, I can't do the same thing I did with Modica, where I talk about how the sets are going to improve the past sets and what new decks are going to rise. All I can really do is tell you my thoughts on the set, like, by itself, as a whole. As always, if you don't know how this works, I'm going to look at 4 cards from each color. It's going to be 16 cards altogether, maybe a couple of bonus cards if I need to talk about combos or something, and then if this video gets 100 likes, I will make a second part where I talk about 16 more cards. I'm telling you guys right now, I had to cut a lot of really great cards from this review, so I'm hoping to see that 100 likes, because believe me, you guys want to see more of this set. It's actually pretty neat. But that's enough out of me. Let's get on to me. Getting started with yellow, we'll look at the Saber level 3. For each of your other characters with Master and or Servant, this gets plus 500 power, so it's a potential 11,500, good enough. And then its second ability is Super Shot. So when you attack and your damage is cancelled, you can discard the top card of your library and deal X damage to your opponent, where X is 1 plus the level of that card. I actually really like this because normally it's just the level of the card, which means you could get a 0 or a climax and not actually deal anything. But with this, there's no downside really. Like the lowest you could possibly deal is 1, and you can deal up to 4. It kind of sucks that this is just a one-time effect, but because you get the power boost anyway, you're going to step over a lot of other cards, and I think this is really useful. Probably not something you build a deck around, but pretty good as a 2-of in most decks, I'd say. I wanted to look at Saber Knight's personality because it looks like an old concept that died for a couple of years is coming back, and that's the idea of accelerating your own clock. Saber's first effect isn't that great. It's pretty much just saves your front row center slot from being sent back to your hand or sent to the waiting room, so on and so forth, so it could potentially have some uses, but overall you mainly just want the power boost, because the power boost is good against all decks in all situations. Its second effect, however, lets you pay 1 stock and clock yourself for 1 damage, and rest this to search your deck for 1 character named either Shiro or Saber and put it in your hand. Clock acceleration isn't always useful, but it can be, and you also get a free character out of it, so I don't know, it might be worth looking into. I'm really excited to get onto this next Saber because the set brought with it something called Resonate, and this card has Resonate and is a good card. So for those who don't know, Resonate is this new concept where if you have a specific card in your hand, you can reveal it to your opponent to show that you have it in your hand, and then your character gets some kind of extra effect. First of all, this is a 6,000 Saber with Encore that only costs 1. Okay, I mean, it's the one where you clock yourself for damage, which isn't as good as just discarding a character, but I still like it. Its Resonate ability is you can reveal a Heroic Spirit Saber from your hand at the start of your Climax phase, and if you do, this gets +1 soul for the turn. The thing I like about this is it's not like a Climax where you play it and then the Climax goes to the waiting room at the end of the turn. If you keep that Heroic Spirit Saber in your hand the entire game, you get this effect every single time you attack, and going up soul means that you have a 2-soul attacker on level 1, which can be very powerful. In fact, the new set has a lot of cards built around a level 1 win deck, and this is one good example of it. I don't want to spoil anything too early, but level 2 got kind of shafted in this new set, and level 1 got a huge power boost, which isn't something we see a whole lot. The last card we'll look at is, holy cow, not a Saber card. It's going to be Shiro confronting other servants. This Shiro also resonates with Heroic Spirit Saber, so if you're building a deck around that other level 1 Saber we were just talking about, this is another card that you can run that's also really good. Its Resonate ability lets you give 1 character plus 1,500 power, which if you give it to the other Saber, it makes it a 7,500, not too bad. 7,500 that swings for 2 soul damage. Honestly, you can't complain. Moving on to green, we'll look at Sakura, Symbol of Normalcy. This is a pretty basic card, but I think it's pretty useful. When you play it, you can discard 1 card from your hand to the waiting room, and then you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and put 1 green character in your hand. It's pretty decent consistent, so you're not really losing anything. It doesn't cost any stock, so that's really good. You're just discarding a card from your hand, and then you replace it with another card, but it's a green character that you actually get to choose. Next card we'll look at is Heroic Spirit Rider. Now, this card is really the point where I realized just how much of a disconnect there has to be between Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night, because when I watched Fate Zero, I remember Rider, and I don't remember Rider as a purple-haired chick who gave me an erection. In fact, no, he looked quite different. Moving on from that though, when this is placed from hand to stage, you can choose one of your opponent's level 2 or lower characters and put it in the waiting room, and then your opponent can choose up to one level 0 character and put it in the slot that that character was in. This is a lot like Nagisa from the new Madoka set, but it's a little better and a little worse. First of all, it doesn't actually get level 3s, and I think the Nagisa does, but this is also free, and I think Nagisa's effect costs something, so, you know, give or take, it's still a really good control card. Also, when this character reverses another character in battle, if you have its Dancing After Class Climax in play, you can put that character into the clock as damage. So this character's kind of like a mix of two really good cards from Adorable, and I can't even complain, okay? It's a good card, it's good. Okay, this guy looks kinda like Lancer. I mean, I don't remember Lancer having blue hair, I'm pretty sure it was like black or something, and I think his hair was a little... I don't know. Okay, so when this is placed from hand to stage, you can look it up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, and then put them back in the same order. This isn't necessarily like a huge game-changing card, but if you're looking for filler cards for your deck, I think this is pretty decent, because it lets you look and see if you're going to go into a climax, and if you see a climax, you can just not attack that turn. Or if you see a regular card and then a climax, you can attack once and then just stop attacking. I mean, like, I don't know, could be good. The last card we'll look at from here is actually a green card called Release of Noble Phantasm. My, that is a bright shade of pink they chose to use. First of all, you can only play it if you have 3 or more green characters in play, which shouldn't be that difficult if you're building a green deck. But the effect, oh my gosh, this effect is like one of my favorite event cards that's ever been released, ever. Because if you use it on level 2 or level 3, you can completely demolish your opponent. So for 1 stock, you can have your opponent discard all of their in-play stock, and then put the same number of cards from the top of their deck into their stock. So it's pretty beautiful. So let's say it's pretty late in the game, and it's level 2 or 3, and your opponent has like 7 stock. You get rid of that 7 stock, and then your opponent has to put face down 7 cards from the top of their deck into their stock. They don't know if there's any climaxes there, they don't know what's going on, okay? They don't know what characters they put in there. It's completely screws with them, and they have no idea what's going on. If you put 1 or 2 climaxes in there, it's going to completely screw over your opponent's deck. It also puts them 7 cards closer to deck refreshing, and unless they use some kind of card to search their deck, they're not going to know exactly how many climaxes or anything that they have left. It's utter chaos, and if I ever play the Fate set and decide to use green, I'm going to use like 3 to 4 copies of this card and just do it over and over again. So in red, I wanted to look at Proof of Pact Rin first, because this is actually one of the most important cards in the set, even though it's not even that good. So remember how I told you about Resonance earlier? Well, there's like 8 different red cards that resonate with this character, so you could even build a deck around it, but some of the most powerful cards need this card to function, and that's why we need to look at it. First of all, it's the Suicider, which I guess makes it good, but you don't really want to play it as a Suicider because you need to keep it in your hand. Like, I guess if you get 2 of these in your hand, it's okay to Suicide one off, but you have to have 1 of these in your hand at all times to make the deck function, which is actually kind of cool as a concept. If you decide for some reason not to play it as a Suicider, you can rest it in the back row to give an archer plus 1500 power, but it can't attack a character whose level is lower than it. Okay, I mean, I guess. I don't think it's really that worth it. I think there's better back row to have. I think you should just keep these in your hand or use them as Suiciders. Getting onto the red level 3, we have one of my favorite level 3s in the set, Heroic Spirit Archer. First effect, if all your other characters are Master and or Servant characters, it has plus 1000 power. It's always going to be like that. You're not going to not have Master or Servant characters in play, so you can just treat this as an 11,000. Getting onto its second effect, which is, like I said before, one of my favorite level 3 effects in the game. When this attacks, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a character that's a master or a servant, you deal X damage to your opponent where X equals the level of that character. Holy cow, it's like getting 2 attacks every time this card attacks, and it's even better because you are only attacking for like 1, 2, or possibly 3 with the first attack. Either you're going to get rid of a climax so that this card's full attack can go through, or you're going to get some bonus damage off, and this could potentially win you the game before the attack is even pulled off. Red actually has like 6 different level 3s, and they're all really good, but this is definitely my favorite. Like, I think if I were ever going to run the Fate set, I would run Red solely so that I could use this card. This card's also really good to show because it has Resonate with Rin Proof of Pact, and I can kind of show what I was talking about before with Rin being essential to pretty much like most of the red cards in the new set. At the beginning of your climax phase, you can show off that Rin Proof of Pact from your hand, and if you do, this becomes a 13,000 instead of an 11,000. And that's pretty important because it steps over, I think, like all of the level 3s, I want to say, in the Fate Stay set. Overall, this is one of the best level 3s. I don't want to say the best level 3 because I know I'm going to get some nerd arguing with me about which is the best level 3, but it's my favorite level 3 in the new Fate set. We're going to look at one more level 3 archer. In this case, it's going to be True Value of Bowman. Discard a card from your hand to the waiting room. When this is placed from hand to stage, you can pay the cost, which is discarding 1 card. If so, choose one of your opponent's level 2 or lower characters and put it in the waiting room. So it's pretty much just for clearing up a space and letting you go for game. And when this card attacks, you can choose one of your other characters with Master or Servant, and it gets plus 2,000 power for the turn. This isn't necessarily the best when it comes to level 3s. In fact, the other one just kicks the absolute dog crap out of this. But it is kind of an example of how the control elements of Fate are improving. Level 2 was just your opponent isn't allowed to have a front row at all kind of game with the Fate control decks, and with this, that kind of game continues on into level 3, so that's why I wanted to look at it. Discarding 1 card from your hand to open up a spot and possibly get rid of a character with Super Encore is definitely worth it. Last card I want to look at is level 0. It might be one of my favorite level 0s, like, ever. All your other characters with Rin or Archer in the name get a form of Super Encore. In this case, their Super Encore is clocking yourself for damage, but who cares? The great thing about Super Encore is it's an optional effect. So this just gives you the option that if one of your Archers becomes reversed or one of your Rins become reversed for whatever reason, you can clock the top card of your deck to keep it alive. I just think that's cool because it gives it to all Rin and all Archer regardless of what they are, or they don't have to be a specific card. It's just all Rin, all Archers, Super Encore. The other thing I think is kind of neat about this card is if you're still old school and you're using like the Fate 0 cards, then you can use this with the other Archer and it's still awesome. I mean, like, the effect doesn't even cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to put this in play. It's just all your Rin and Archers get Super Encore. The other great thing about this is if you're using the Rin that has Suicide Effect, you can attack with it and then Super Encore back, and then just keep using her to clear field. It's really costly. I don't think you'd actually want to do that unless you're really trying to accelerate yourself to level 1, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that it's possible is really lolzy. Red is really good. Okay, we're getting on to blue, and I want to let you guys know, normally blue is like the weakest color in a set. Guys, you ain't seen nothing yet, okay? You have not seen anything until you've seen the blue in Unlimited Blade Works. We'll start things off with level 3, which is somehow not even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to blue. So when this is placed from the hand to the stage or through change to the stage, you can look it up to X cards from the top of your deck, choose 1 to put in your hand, and put the rest in the waiting room. X equals the number of your characters with Master or Servant. The thing about this is, it's actually not as good as one would say. It is kind of neat that you can cycle through and get a card that you need, but at the same time, if you have a full field when you play this card, then you're getting like 5 cards from the top of your deck, and if 1 or 2 of them are climaxes, you're completely screwing yourself when your opponent's turn comes around, and you're not getting that much out of it. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying be careful, guys. So its second effect is you can pay 4 stock and discard 2 cards from your hands to the discard pile, and you can stand this back up after it attacks if you were able to reverse a character with your first attack. At level 3, this is a really good effect because it lets you attack twice, it lets you trigger twice. It's pretty much a game-ending card. I oddly enough wouldn't say this is as good as Archer's level 3 because, first of all, Archer's level 3 doesn't cost 4 stock and make you discard 2 cards from your hand. Okay, real talk, that is a costly ability just to stand up again. But it is possible that, like, if you are trying to get that last 2 damage in and your opponent cancels, it's like, oh no, that was like a 1 in 20 chance of him canceling. You can pay the huge cost, you can stand back up, and you can pull the attack off again and just win the game. Restand effects aren't something we see a whole lot, so when I see it, I gotta point it out to everybody. Alrighty, so getting on to Berserker, Overwhelming Violence, it's got 9500, which is actually really good for a level 2, as you know. I mean, it costs 2 stock, and most of the time you're paying 2 stock for a regular 9000, so it's kind of a trade-off there. It also loses 1 soul, but you know, swinging for 1 soul with 9500 damage is really good at level 2. When this character becomes reversed, you have to put the top card of your deck into the clock and rest this. This is pretty interesting because it's a non-optional form of Encore, like the clock yourself for 1 damage Encore. And the fact that it's not optional kind of sucks, but at the same time, like, it's a 9500. I can admit that, like, at level 2, you're definitely not going to be wanting to clock yourself for too much damage, but it's still kind of a neat effect to have. Like, just having some form of Encore on a 9500 is pretty good. So yeah, like, overall, for a level 2, this isn't that, wait a second, hold on, what is that? Oh no. What are you? You're a monster. Okay, a 9500 at level 1 is 3 spooky 5 me. Let's move on to Assassin Killing Move. This is one of the most interesting level 2s I think I've ever seen. So first of all, it gets plus 1000 power for each of your other Assassin Killing moves. That on its own is pretty good, but its second effect lets you pay 1 stock and discard 2 cards from your hand when this is put onto the stage, and you can search your deck for 2 more copies of this and put them in play. I mean, all in all, you're paying 2 stock and giving up 3 cards from your hand to get a full row of 9000s, and that's, I don't know, that's pretty decent to me. Really, the only thing you can complain about is the fact that they only swing for 1 soul damage, but the trade-off there is it only costs 1 to play the first one, so, you know, you're paying 2, you're getting a full row of 9000s. That's pretty good. The other neat thing about this is if you happen to have the other one, like the 4th one in your hand, you can play it and give everybody another 1000 to make it a full row of 10,000s. I don't know, guys, it sounds pretty good to me. It's not the most powerful combo in the game, but it's a card where you play it and you can consistently get a full row of 9000s for just 2 stock. I mean, there's not many other decks you can say that about. And it also gets the bonus that if you play that 3rd stock and have the other one in hand, you can play that and make them all 10,000s. It's good. It's not the most powerful thing out there, but it is one of the most consistent good combos that I've seen. Alrighty, so the last card we're going to look at today is Taken by Force. You can pay 2 stock at level 2 and rest one of your standing master characters. If so, choose one of your opponent's level 2 or lower characters, put it on the bottom of the library. Some people are going to argue that 2 stock is a little costly, but oh man, if only there were a way that we could pay 2 stock and get a full row of 9000 so that we had enough stock to pay for other cards. Imagine. Not only does it clear up a spot, but it also puts that character back into the deck so that it can become damaged later. And normally if you're dealing with yellow or something like that, it puts it in your opponent's hand so they can play it next turn. No! Now it is completely out of reach unless they have a way to search for it. It gets around all forms of Super Encore. It makes it so that if your opponent was planning like some kind of backup play to step over one of your characters, that doesn't happen. It gives you 1 more damage because you're swinging in an open spot. Overall, for 2 stock, there's a lot worse you could do. Okay, so let's talk about the set. Overall, the set is amazing. I don't really know much about the other Fate sets, like I said before. I'm not really a duelist in that area, and I didn't do a deck profile for them yet. So, I think that as a standalone set, this is very runnable. One thing that the Fate sets have always been good at least from what I've seen, is their cards don't hit the highest numbers in terms of power normally, but they normally have such good effects that they can control the field regardless. I've seen a lot of cards that get rid of your opponent's field, that deal extra damage. It's kind of one of those decks where you're not trying to reverse the opponent over and over again, you're trying to find a way to win regardless of what your opponent has on the field. I also love the inclusion of Resonate. I think Resonate is going to change the way that decks in the future are built. It's a climax combo that doesn't need a climax that you can do every single turn without actually getting rid of the card. And since multiple characters can resonate with the same card, it's something that you can build a deck around. Overall, I'd say that the new Fate set gets Kudo's seal of approval and might actually get me to watch Blade Works. But there's a lot of good cards I didn't look at, so if you want to see those other cards, then frontal attack that like button and get it to 100. You know, if you share this with your friends, we might get that 100 a little bit faster. Leave me your thoughts on the set in the comment section below, and finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudo news. Until next time, Weiss fans.